population of Wales expanded at an astonishing rate in the 19th century as mining, quarrying and manufacturing developed so incredibly rapidly, to such an extent that by the 1851 census it was estimated that there were more people either working in or dependent upon industry than there were agriculture. So, for better or for worse, perhaps Wales can be described as the first industrial nation. Those immigrants who came in to serve the voracious demands of industrialization, well, they came from rural Wales and further afield, and they brought with them their cultures and their traditions and their social mores to really blend together and make a unique society. It was in the narrow valleys and the expanding ports that all those different people came together, a mixture of Welsh and English. One of my favourite publications is this, Talk Tidy by John Edwards, which he describes as being the glossary of Wenglish, the third language of Wales. And in it he describes this rich and wonderful combination that's given us such phrases like, well, I'll do it now in a minute, or where you could tutty down. And of course, as we all know, anyone can hug or cuddle, but nobody can cwtch like the Welsh. I grew up in an English-speaking environment, but our everyday language was peppered with Welsh idioms. And I mean, what could be more expressive and onomatopoeic than achafi? And how many of us can remember the puzzlement of non-Wenglish speakers when we referred to daps, never plimsolls, or heaven forfend, trainers? One of the commonplace terms that's long interested me is butty or butt for your friend. I've heard that in some coal mines the short pit props used at the coalface were called butts, and there's a school of thought that thinks that the American term buddy originated from Welsh miners moving in the 19th and early 20th centuries. Of course, it's the use of nicknames that's given me such joy over the years, and I've made a little collection, and among my favourites are Dai Ding, who was the local bus conductor, and then there was a chap who was known as 18 months because he'd lost the lower part of his ear in a pit accident, so he only had a year and a half. Another example of Wenglish. When I was a kid, there was a family that was known as One-Eyes, which I always thought related to an accident that one of them may have had. But no, they were the first family to move into number 1 High Street many years before. I also came across Oblong Evans, who was 6'5" tall, and Davis Click Click, whose false teeth didn't fit very well and moved up and down as he spoke. Well, some of the nicknames were not necessarily welcomed by the recipient. For instance, Will Trousers, who was so called because the family was so poor that he had to use his father's trousers that had been cut down to size for him. And if a member of your family had scabbed during a strike, well, that nickname could live with you for generations. My friend Howard Maurig from Risca recalled,
well, I think I told you about the barber with a club foot, swinging up and down. I mean, that was rather cruel. I think I told you about the stay-in strike in Taffmother in 1930. Well, his son, Donald, he scabbed. And I didn't know this, of course, but his father's business, old Sweeney's business, was nobody would go and have a haircut. See, it was unfair because his son was coming. So I went in for a haircut, and I sat in a chair, and I remember old Jim telling me, do you know, he said, I haven't taken half a crown all the week. Well, I realised then I was in the wrong place. The man had been sent to Coventry, and I shouldn't have been sitting in a chair. And with that, the door opened. And in Tommy Griffiths' face came in. He was a dry old stick, he was, Tommy was. And old Jim snipping away at me there, he stopped and he turned round and he said, hello, Tom, come in for a haircut? No, Sweeney, I've come in to tell you that my hair'll be down to my bloody arse before you'll cut it again.
The upshot of that episode was that the barber went out of business and the family had to move away. But let's not end on a sour note, but remember some of the more humorous ones, like the local milkman who was known as Lewis Grade A, or the union representative who was known as Jones No Legs, because he would often come out of meetings with the management and say, sorry boys, but I didn't have a leg to stand on. And then there's the lovely story in The Blythe Ones by Walter Hayden Davis. This is about herbalist and winemaker who was well known in the locality for his remedies. His nickname was Quack Quack. Now, Quack Quack was a great advocate of passing wind, and he used to say, better to pass wind than pay the doctor sixpence. Now, I wonder if a certain Tom Thomas of number 2 Pit took that remedy to heart, because he was the holder of a very special award that was 52 farts in succession. Now, that's something to put on your CV. I suppose in these days of global standardization that everything is being homogenized and the use of nicknames disappearing. It's not the case where I live in Carmarthenshire, because many of the local farming families are known by the names of their farms. So it's quite common to refer to somebody like David T. Gwyn or Jones Cumdee. Hearing those nicknames and listening to the fine nuances of Wenglish reminds me that there is another important part of our history, and that, of course, is the spoken word. An ancient document, a historic building, well, they too are very, very important, but so too are the memories of people, everyday people, all of us in our own small way, a part of a history.